The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. The lighting was dialed in perfectly, the cast was ready, and the manufactured drama of reality television was just about to start rolling. But then, a piece of news broke. A headline so stark and so devastating that it brought an entire reality TV empire to a screeching silent halt. Welcome to Starscope Report.
Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame. And our mission today is to pull back the curtain and really explore the heartbreaking reality behind a headline that has just completely shaken the pop culture landscape. What really happened to Robert Cosby Jr.?
Right. And it is it's a profoundly sobering story. To really understand the sequence of events that led to this tragedy, we are pulling from a massive, highly diverse snack of sources today. We've meticulously reviewed the official police records, the medical examiner reports, and deep dive investigative articles.
Yeah, and we're also looking closely at E! News transcripts, clips from Bravo's The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and there's really passionate discussions happening on Reddit forums where fans are actively dissecting the ethics of reality TV.
Exactly. We're looking at the media ecosystem itself.
So whether you casually follow the Bravo universe or you track every single development in celebrity culture, what we need to unpack today goes way beyond typical reality TV lore. This is an unflinching look at the human cost of extreme wealth, religious controversy, and addiction, especially when that struggle is played out under the blinding lights of a television set.
I mean, to understand the tragic trajectory of Robert Cosby Jr.'s life, you have to first comprehend the immense cognitive dissonance of his upbringing. He was the only child of reality star Mary Cosby and Robert Cosby Sr. And as you might already know, Robert Sr. is actually Mary's step-grandfather.
Which is it's a staggering dynamic to try and process.
It is. Mary's grandmother, Rosemary, who went by Mama Cosby, founded the Faith Temple Pentecostal Church back in 1968. And it wasn't just a place of worship. It grew into a multi-million-dollar empire encompassing daycares, radio stations, and vast real estate holdings. When Mama Cosby died, a massive power struggle erupted over the estate.
Right. And to maintain control of the church and all those assets, Mary married her step-grandfather in what she herself described as an arranged marriage dictated by her grandmother's will. So let's unpack this, because the psychological weight that highly isolated dynamic placed on Robert Jr. as their only child and sole heir is just incredible to think about.
Absolutely. Inside the walls of their church, his parents are revered by their congregation as divine leaders. But outside those doors and eventually on national television, the very foundation of his parents' marriage is treated by the public as a scandalous, bizarre punchline.
He was raised in a literal golden cage, insulated by extreme wealth and this unquestionable religious authority.
And that golden cage became a public spectacle the moment Mary joined the cast of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. The cameras essentially weaponized his isolation. And, viewers are incredibly perceptive. From the very first season, fans on Reddit and social media were spotting the red flags.
Yeah, they really were. They were actively dissecting his lethargic behavior, pointing out his noticeably slow speech, and observing the way he seemed to just zombie walk through scenes. The audience was seeing the warning signs years before the show explicitly addressed them.
Right, but all of those subtle background warning signs finally boiled over during the filming of Season 5 in late 2024. That's when we got that highly emotional, on-camera confession.
Sitting right next to his mother, Robert Jr. detailed a severe substance abuse problem that he admitted began when he was just 16 years old. And the list of substances he rattled off, it was staggering. Heroin, Xanax, acid, Molly, and cocaine.
It was a deeply alarming admission. From a clinical perspective, polysubstance abuse of that magnitude in a young adult is often an indicator of profound self-medication. He was likely attempting to numb a highly complex psychological pain.
Let's pause on one specific, chilling detail he shared during that confession because it just stops you cold.
Yeah.
He openly admitted to taking up to 10 30-milligram OxyContin pills at once.
10 at once?
Yeah. He looked right at his mother on camera and stated, "I couldn't even feel it." We're talking about 10 heavy-duty narcotic pills in a single sitting.
Describing that level of consumption without effect indicates profound neurochemical tolerance. When an individual takes opioids in those massive quantities over an extended period, the brain's reward pathways become completely desensitized. The central nervous system literally adapts its own structure to survive the constant, heavy influx of depressants.
So his body was just entirely used to it.
Exactly. What that means in practical terms is that the baseline required just to feel normal, let alone feel a high, becomes a dosage that would instantly cause a fatal overdose in a non-tolerant person. His body was operating under an immense artificial chemical load.
And the psychological toll matched that physical devastation perfectly. He didn't just talk about drugs. He openly discussed severe suicidal ideation. He described himself as feeling like a stain, telling his mother that he felt the world just wasn't meant for him. And in a moment that is incredibly difficult to watch, he looks at Mary and says, "You're the only reason I didn't kill myself."
That statement highlights a phenomenon we frequently observe in severe addiction cases within highly insular, high-control family systems. It's called profound enmeshment.
Yeah.
His literal survival became inextricably linked to his mother's presence and approval.
But simultaneously, her presence was intrinsically tied to the reality TV production machine and that high-pressure church empire.
Right. It created an inescapable web of pressure, and he simply lacked the necessary coping mechanisms to navigate it independently.
And that's not even the wildest part. If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead. Because what happened off camera is where the spiral really accelerates.
It really does, because while his mother was telling the Bravo cameras and various talk show hosts that he was doing better, that he was checking into rehab and turning things around, his off-camera life was completely collapsing.
Back in 2022, Robert Jr. had secretly married a woman named Alexiana Smokoff at a Utah courthouse. And by the fall of 2025, that marriage was buckling under the crushing weight of his addiction and his rapidly deteriorating mental health.
The official police reports from September 2025 paint a harrowing picture of a man entirely losing his grip on reality. During that month, he repeatedly attempted to break into his estranged wife's family home, and the specific method of entry noted in the police files is deeply troubling. He was trying to crawl through a dog door.
Just picture the sheer indignity of that moment. You, the sole heir to a multi-million-dollar religious empire, a young man who grew up surrounded by absolute luxury, reduced to trying to force his way into a house through a pet door. It strips away all the glittering reality TV glamour and leaves you with the raw, ugly desperation of severe addiction.
Attempting entry through a pet door is a classic, severe, clinical indicator of a total abandonment of social norms and a complete lack of impulse control. But the police reports add another layer of extreme concern here.
What do they note?
They note that Robert claimed he was hearing his wife's voice in his head, telling him to come to the house. This strongly suggests he was experiencing a full-blown drug-induced psychosis, complete with auditory hallucinations and paranoid delusions. He was entirely disconnected from reality.
And that terrifying situation finally exploded a few weeks later, in November 2025. He returns to the property, and this time he completely erupts. He kicks his mother-in-law's Mercedes. He violently attacks his father-in-law right on the front lawn. And the source materials emphasize that this physical assault happened right in front of Alexiana's 12-year-old brother.
It was a massive escalation.
Yeah. And when police officers arrive on the scene to intervene, Robert Jr. resists arrest so violently that he actually bites a police officer hard enough to break the skin. Law enforcement ultimately had to deploy a taser just to bring him down.
The legal system moved swiftly after that violent incident. On November 24th, Alexiana filed for divorce and secured a permanent no-contact order against him. Robert Jr. eventually pleaded guilty to 8 separate misdemeanors, which included assault and violating a protective order.
And because of the severity of the incident, he was remanded to the Salt Lake County Metro Jail without bail. He would end up sitting in that specific cell for 86 days. But wait until you hear what came next, because while he was in jail, the story takes another massive turn. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming. Because here's where it gets really interesting.
Right. The timing of his incarceration is crucial here because while he is sitting in that county jail cell, going through forced withdrawal and totally isolated from his family, a perfect storm is brewing on the outside. In January 2026, the TLC network drops a highly damaging 3-part investigative docuseries called The Cult of the Real Housewife.
And that documentary was explosive. It took direct aim at the Faith Temple Pentecostal Church. According to Variety and the sources we reviewed, the series featured interviews with ex-congregants and even extended family members. They publicly accused Mary and Robert Sr. of running a mind control cult, engaging in systematic financial extortion, and perpetrating severe spiritual abuse upon their followers. Again, we're not taking a stance on the validity of those claims, but we are reporting that this was the media firestorm happening while he was locked away.
Exactly. Just put yourself in his shoes for a second. You are 23 years old. Your marriage is over. Your freedom is gone. You are battling a severe physiological addiction in a concrete cell. And the only foundation you have left in the world, your family and your church, is being publicly dismantled and labeled a cult on national television for millions to see.
The sheer psychological pressure and isolation of that moment must have been unbearable.
It sets the stage for a highly precarious re-entry into society. On February 3, 2026, Robert Jr. is officially released from custody. The court sentences him to 36 months of probation, mandates intensive therapy, and requires 75 hours of community service.
And his lawyer immediately makes a statement to the press, framing the 86 days in jail as a positive turning point, noting it represented Robert's longest period of sobriety in years. Mary Cosby follows suit by posting a celebratory photo of him on her Instagram account, seemingly announcing his release and recovery to the world.
It projects this fleeting narrative of false hope, this idea that maybe the harsh reality of jail time actually worked, that maybe he hit rock bottom and is finally on the upswing. But what's fascinating and deeply tragic is the stark contrast between that public narrative of hope and the medical reality of his physical condition.
Because most people assume that after a period of prolonged, forced abstinence like 86 days in a county jail, the addict is physically safe.
The medical reality is the exact opposite. That period of enforced abstinence drastically lowers the body's physical tolerance to opioids. The acute danger occurs when the individual relapses and attempts to return to their pre-jail dosage.
You mean like the 10 OxyContin pills he casually mentioned taking in one sitting just to feel normal? If he reaches for that same handful out of habit, or out of a desperate need to numb the psychological pain of everything that happened while he was locked up, his body is entirely unprepared for it.
Precisely. If his brain and body are no longer conditioned to handle that massive influx of central nervous system depressants, and he takes that same high dose, the respiratory system is immediately and catastrophically overwhelmed. The brain essentially forgets to tell the lungs to breathe, leading directly to fatal hypoxia. Statistically speaking, the first 2 weeks post-release from incarceration represent one of the most dangerous periods in an addict's life for a fatal overdose.
And all of those systemic failures converged on the night of February 23, 2026, just 20 days after he walked out of that jail cell. Police and medics respond to a frantic 911 call at Mary Cosby's home for what the dispatch logs describe as a full arrest and medical emergency.
And when first responders rush into the house, they find Robert Jr. unconscious and not breathing.
The emergency audio confirms they immediately administered Narcan, the nasal spray, specifically designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdoses. But it was simply too late. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was only 23 years old.
The way his family immediately processed that devastating culmination offers a striking look at how high-profile religious figures navigate public tragedy. Shortly after his death, Mary Cosby released a statement on Instagram saying, "Our beloved son Robert Jr. has been called home to the Lord. Though our hearts ache, we take comfort in God's promise and in knowing he is finally at peace."
Which is a massive departure from the unfiltered, highly volatile reality TV drama we're used to seeing from her. It really sanitizes the absolute brutality of what actually happened in that house.
Looking at this through a sociological lens, that Pentecostal framing serves a powerful dual purpose. On a deeply personal level, it provides a crucial theological safety net, allowing a grieving mother to process an agonizing, senseless loss.
But institutionally?
Institutionally, it completely reframes the public narrative. By stating he has been called home and is finally at peace, the statement strategically bypasses the grueling reality of systemic failure, crippling addiction, and violent legal turmoil. It effectively maintains the family's spiritual authority without forcing them to publicly acknowledge the chaos that led directly to his death.
Meanwhile, the Bravo production machine slammed on the brakes. TMZ and other outlets reported that the news broke literally as production for Season 7 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was scheduled to begin filming. The network immediately halted everything. Andy Cohen posted publicly that this scenario is every parent's worst nightmare. And then you see the cast members reacting in real time, which is surreal given the deep history there.
The cast reaction highlights a fascinating boundary line within reality television culture, where manufactured conflict meets real-world grief.
We're talking about women like Heather Gay, Lisa Barlow, and Whitney Rose. These co-stars have had incredibly toxic, deeply personal feuds with Mary Cosby for years. Fans on Reddit were actively pointing out the dark irony of the situation, bringing up the vile texts Mary had previously sent to Whitney, ruthlessly mocking her appearance and tearing her down.
But when this news broke, all of them put the petty drama entirely aside. They flooded Mary's comments with genuine support and prayers. It is a stark reminder that even in this hyper-manufactured, highly edited world, there is a definitive line where the reality TV persona drops and actual human empathy takes over.
Right, but while the cast offered immediate support, the broader public discourse, particularly on those Reddit forums we analyzed, was incredibly conflicted regarding the network's role in all of this. So what does this all mean for the audience? Because diving into those analytical threads, fans are deeply uncomfortable with what they're watching.
They're pointing out the glaring hypocrisy of a television network exploiting a young man's severe addiction for a storyline only to offer corporate condolences when it inevitably ends in tragedy.
There are intense, heated debates happening right now about the reality TV child phenomenon. Robert Jr. never signed a contract to be a Bravo star. He was drafted into this toxic spotlight entirely without his consent. His darkest, most vulnerable moments, his addiction, his court-ordered rehab, his mother's emotional reactions to it, were neatly packaged as an entertainment for mass consumption.
It exposes the immense ethical tightrope of reality television. Viewers are beginning to reckon with the severe collateral damage of these shows. The audience gets to turn off the PV and walk away, but individuals like Robert Jr. have to live with the permanent, inescapable digital footprint of their trauma. It creates a deeply parasitic relationship where the very real life-or-death struggles of the cast and their extended families become the raw content that drives network advertising revenue.
To wrap all of this up, Robert Cosby Jr. was a young man caught in an impossible, crushing intersection. He was carrying the immense weight of a multi-million-dollar religious dynasty on his shoulders. He was battling a severe physiological addiction that completely robbed him of his agency and impulse control. And he was forced to navigate all of this under the relentless, unforgiving gaze of reality television cameras. He was a son, a husband, and a young man in deep pain, whose life ended long before he could ever find his way out of the complex maze he was born into.
The complexity of his life defies any simple summary or easy narrative. It stands as a profound cautionary tale about what happens when private clinical crises are forced into the public domain. Most importantly, it is a tragic reminder that extreme wealth, religious authority, and reality television fame offer absolutely no immunity to the physiological realities of severe addiction.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to mull over as you step away from this deep dive. Production on the show is currently paused, but reality TV never stops for long. If Mary Cosby chooses to return to the show, her grieving process will inevitably, unavoidably, become a central storyline. As consumers of this content, we have to ask ourselves, at what point does our viewership shift from passive entertainment to active complicity in the commodification of a family's ultimate tragedy? Does the camera offer a platform for healing and awareness? Or does it simply consume everything it touches until there is nothing left?
A vital, necessary question to consider.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.
We'll see you next time.